But I'll tell you, if you want to know what's going on with this coronavirus stuff, you've really got to watch the president's daily briefings, his daily press briefings, which now seem to be taking place at right around 5 p.m. each day. They're fascinating. I mean, he's got a good group of people up there. Everybody provides some input. And I think there's a lot of valuable information that gets shared during those briefings, including something we're going to share with you during today's broadcast that we heard last week that really was a change in tune, I thought, from what we'd heard previously from the quote-unquote experts. But there's a lot of things, including the clip that we're going to share with you a little bit later in the program. There's a lot of things to be really positive about from where we stand right now, even though I also heard as of yesterday that now they're talking about extending these stay-at-home orders through the end of April, which is, we're talking about a whole nother 30 days.
And that could probably put away some businesses for another month.
Oh, it's certainly going to.
Never come back.
It's certainly going to. I mean, in fact, you look at the restaurant industry, which is probably one of the hardest hit industries, being as how they were forced to close quite early on in this process. But I'm looking at some data that's come in from the National Restaurant Association, and they've said that 3% of restaurants have already permanently closed. They'll never open back up. So that's about 1 in 30 restaurants have now permanently closed. 44% of operators have temporarily closed, and 11% anticipate that within the month they will have to permanently close. So you're looking at maybe as much as about 15% of restaurants as a result of this coronavirus outbreak, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. About 15% of restaurants, or maybe 1 in 7 or 8, are going to be permanently closed. Now, will that ever come back? One would think, well, if people are going out and things, then some other business person will see an opportunity in the market and maybe some already outfitted and built out space and jump into that space and start operating their own restaurants. But that's pretty sad when you think about these are a lot of restaurants, that aren't chain restaurants, are individual people's, life's work. It's their business. It's what they've put their entire life into. I see. Wow, that's awesome. We've got a caller already.
So if you talk about that 15% of restaurants that may end up being closed permanently, that's all of their employees. And then all of those other restaurants that aren't closing permanently, I guarantee they're scaling back.
Sure. Well, and all they can do now is takeout. And I think people are somewhat gun shy and maybe a little bit scared even to do takeout. Pat, you were shaking your head. It's so funny to watch y'all because you can hear now. You could barely talk on the phone, Pat, when somebody called because Roxanne's standing right there beside you.
Yeah, it was just a quick caller that said, I'm jumping out of the car right now. They wanted to thank you for touching on the restaurants.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's a big deal. And particularly think about people who have put all of their life force, all their energy, all their money into restaurants. The restaurant business is already an incredibly difficult business. I think 85% of new restaurants fail within the first year. So they just don't ever make it past the first year.
And it's really crazy. There were a lot of strip malls that were empty already.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you add a lot of these businesses that might go out and not come back for a while, it could look even more barren. Well, it will.
It will look even more barren. And then, what happens to the landlords who are highly leveraged in those deals? What does that mean, highly leveraged? They've taken out big loans on those shopping centers. So, a $25 million shopping center plaza, and they've put down $2.5 million and borrowed the rest. And now all of a sudden that shopping center plaza is only worth, instead of the $25 million that it was borrowed, the money was borrowed on, the value of the plaza, maybe that's now down to worth only $20 or $15 million, and you've got more debt on it than what the place is worth. Now what's the bank going to do? They're going to, tell you've got to come up with the difference. You've got to come up with the balance. And see, this how you probably didn't put that much in to begin with, relative to the entire deal. And you probably don't have the spare capital right now because none of your other investments or sources of income are doing very well. This is going to cause the failures of a lot of these shopping center development deals. We're just going to see the dominoes fall across the industries. And so it's not just the restaurants. It's not just people who've lost their jobs there, but this is going to have after effects throughout the entire economy and across a pretty broad scale. And so I'm sorry we're going to have to stay shut down for another month, but we do have some good news for you, and we'll get into that when we come back on The Morgan Streetman Show. Thank you for listening to The Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.